Howdy, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Follow the Leader. I'm your host, Lee, and I am here with Montana Environmental Information. Oh my gosh, MEIC Director Ann Hedges. She has been with MEIC since 1993. Truly, Montana is lucky to have you. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and I have been going through your website, going through your LinkedIn, doing my research. Like I said, folks, she's been with MEIC since 2003, since 1993. She's transitioning from the Peace Corps. Tell me, how does your work with Montana Environmental Information and Peace Corps, how does that correlate?
It's all about giving back. It's all about feeling like I have the privilege and have always had privilege compared to so many people in the world. And I also was broke and I wanted to travel. So I married those two things and was able to go to South America for a couple of years and have just an incredible experience. Really just one of those life-changing experiences, as so many return Peace Corps volunteers talk about.
Absolutely. And here now, years later, still being of service, one thing that is threatening Montanans and that we have a lot of questions about are these AI data centers. Um, We have heard so much mixed information. I'm glad that you are here because you're coming up in person to Great Falls to speak to us next Thursday, January 8th. But here, answer some questions for me. I love how you have your data reports on your website. And folks, I highly recommend going to MEIC's website and opening their reports on data centers. Recently, there was a data center that did not work out in Great Falls, but should Montanans, North Central Montanans around Great Falls, should we still be concerned?
Absolutely. This new era of AI and data centers to provide the capacity for AI, it is having impacts all over the nation and all over the world. And we have been stagnant in our energy use for decades. We really have not grown our demand for energy as people's homes get more efficient and businesses get more efficient. And so suddenly there is this incredible proposed increase in energy needs due to this new technology, but there's very little behind it. There's very little to back it up. And a lot of this is considered to be just proposals like the one in Great Falls that are somewhat fly by night. They're looking in other jurisdictions. It's a race to the bottom. Ultimately, they're all shopping around between states trying to find the best deal. Who's going to give them cheap power, cheap water, have somebody else subsidize the cost of infrastructure for their facilities, and the state that gets to the bottom first is the one where they're going to locate. And so there's a lot of hype in this space, but there's also there are a lot of stories that are cautionary tales for Montana. Other states have been experiencing the harms that this increase in energy demand and water use is creating, and they're just starting to get to grapple with what do you do about it. And I just want to say also, first off, you know, AI has a lot of value. It does. There are a lot of settings in which AI has improved our lives. There's a lot of potential in which AI could improve our lives. We all use data, but we are talking about something very different than that. We are talking about generative AI, which uses just a tremendous amount of power versus the AI that you might get on ChatGPT even, or the AI that pops up in your Google searches. That doesn't use anywhere near the power that generative AI, which is making videos and pictures and things, that just it's a game changer as far as the energy demand in this country and in Montana. So I think we need to differentiate because I don't want everybody to feel like, well, I use data, so I guess I'm guilty. There are ways to do this well. There are jurisdictions who are working towards that. Some have already
Okay.
accomplished it. And so there's ways to do this in which We invite data centers in on our terms in this state. We don't just say, come one, come all, and it's a free for all. Take our water, take our cheap electricity, use up all of the space on the power grid. That's not what we should be doing. But in fact, that is exactly what we are doing by not doing anything.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't think a lot of folks know that there is a lot of um, ownership, autonomy that citizens have, local communities have, because we there seems to, like you said, they're like these fly by night. No one's really clear what's going on. Some folks around the state are saying like some of the meetings are getting confusing. Um, I know that there are two AI data centers proposed around Butte, and I think your website also said that there were four more. I don't know if that other four includes the Great Falls or not. What cities do you know are being considered?
Well, we know that Butte, absolutely. And I think this point is important. Data centers want to set up where there's transmission available. And so it's one of the reasons they picked Great Falls. It's the reason they're picking Butte is there is some transmission capacity, not much, but some. There's been talk about data centers out near Colstrip. But the limiting factor is the ability to move power to those locations. The Broadview data center, Quantica's data center, at Broadview is at a really important point in the grid, and that's why they located there. So if Great Falls had one proposal, that's because they saw potential to be able to move power in that area. And that's why Great Falls should still be on alert for future data centers coming in because somebody saw capacity on your grid system in that area and said, let's locate here. That didn't just go away. Our grid is very constrained. We have this amazing infrastructure all over the country. We have this grid system that moves energy around that is the envy of so many countries all over the world. And it hasn't been updated in generations. And so our grid system is old. It is not up to the task of modern society. It needs to be upgraded, and it absolutely needs to be upgraded and expanded if we intend to serve data centers. It also needs to be upgraded and expanded so that we can get energy in a more efficient way. But ultimately, there's data centers that have been proposed in the state. There's a lot of them. There's up to 1,400 megawatts of data center demand that has been at least had a press release, right? Whether those will come about, we don't know. I'm guessing they won't, some will. Others are going to come on in. We need to be ready. That's our message is we need to be ready so that we set the rules of the road before they get here. Because once they get here, it gets much, much more difficult to try to alter the rules. These are the richest people in America who are proposing to make these data centers and AI. They have resources. So Montana needs to protect itself and protect the people who are living here now.
Yes.
Um, and if we don't, we're going to get stuck paying higher bills.
Yes, and that you did mention that our current system is outdated and it needs update, which I'm assuming whether it's Northwestern Energy or Black Hills, because they
Mhm.
acquired, merged, I don't know the
They're
language.
they're in the process of merging. The
Okay,
PSC hasn't approved it yet.
okay. Um, but yeah, for them to update all of that it's gonna take money and
Mhm.
and that alone would raise our costs. And then on top of it, you're talking about, like you said, somehow us subsidizing the wealthiest peoples in America's projects, energy projects. And I'm like, wait, hold on. We've got our own stuff that we need to update, right? It's just compounding. The bill is here, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and Montana, we used to have the lowest electricity prices in the region. We are now the second highest in the Pacific Northwest. So we
Really?
simply, as Montanans, can no longer afford our utility bills. And the PSC is in the process of approving another rate increase. We can't keep doing this. We've got to say This is what the people of the state can afford, and if somebody wants more, they need to pay for it. It's that simple. This really boils down to who pays.
Yeah, right. Right, and that's the concern is that, Montanans would be subsidizing or in some way, these AI data centers, not just financially, but also, in their water, in, in the space, and really without any benefit to the job market. Can you talk about the AI data centers and these job bubble bursts?
Yeah, there's a lot of, uh, there are a lot of people who really want data centers because of job creation, and past the actual initial construction, which most of this is prefab, um, but there is a lot of, electrical work that needs to be done. Um, but past that initial construction phase, there are very few jobs in this sector, and most of those jobs can locate anywhere. They don't have to locate in Great Falls. They don't have to locate in Montana. They can be located elsewhere. We have a great image. It was an overhead image. It was a flight of a data center down in Butte, and it's a 50 megawatt, I believe, data center. At middle of the day, middle of the week, it was supposedly operating, and there's 4 cars in the parking lot. Um,
Mm.
so I just want people to beware of the numbers that get thrown about job creation, because those jobs don't have to locate in any one location. There are very few people who need to be on site. So I think that there's a lot of hype, and we've seen this time and time again where these companies promise 100,000 jobs that never materialize. They don't materialize. We now have enough data to know that the promises that are made are not the same promises that are kept. They just simply don't need that many people. That's the whole point of AI.
Right, and that's the scary thing is that in a way, AI is going to replace so many jobs that it feels weird, even for us as humans, to be like, "Hold on, you want us to you're gonna take our jobs and our water?" Like,
And our
how
data?
and our data all
You're gonna take all
what?
our right, you're gonna take our water. In the water front, they say all the time, "We can recycle our water. Don't worry about the water." Um, but they don't recycle their water, not unless they are required to do so, because it's more expensive for them. Like I said, it's a race to the bottom. If they don't have to, they won't do it. These guys are the richest men in America for a reason. Not because they went out of their way to do something right or do something that has had community benefits. They are the richest men in America because they're ruthless and they do take advantage of communities if they have an opportunity. Elon Musk, I believe it was in Tennessee or Kentucky, built a whole slew of gas plants without going through the air quality permitting process. Instead, he said, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry." He asked forgiveness, not permission. And these are building really big gas plants adjacent to homes. So people in rural spaces should be very concerned. People in urban spaces should be somewhat concerned, but at least you have some zoning in those urban spaces. But if you live someplace just outside of town in one of these areas where there's some transmission capacity available, I'd go to my county commissioners and ask them to put a moratorium on giving the authority for these data centers to move in automatically. There should be some type of local permitting for these types of actions to make sure that existing farmers and ranchers and those people who are relying on the water system, that people who have wells in the area are not going to have their water disrupted, are not going to suffer from really high levels of noise. So, data centers are noisy. As we learned with a crypto operation, which is a data center, outside of Missoula, the people there couldn't sleep at night in the summertime with their windows open because it was so noisy. I remember going just on the fence line of that facility and going, "Holy smokes, I'm glad I don't live near this." Data centers are very noisy, and it's usually fans that are causing that noise, because they have to be cooled. That's one of the problems data centers have. It's one of the reasons they use so much electricity, is they have to constantly cool down these machines so they don't overheat, and those fans make noise. And so people in that area were distressed. And so if I were in a rural area, I would go to my county commissioners and try to get a few safeguards in place now before a data center comes your way.
Really? So that's a great point. What are some things that a local citizen can do with their local government? Can you walk us through some things that you have seen around Montana that have been effective?
Not yet. I mean, there's a lot of great stories in Montana of successes. There's so many stories of communities being successful when they get together and they ask questions and they demand the responses from their elected officials. We have just dozens and dozens of stories like that in Montana. I mean, the Highwood Generating Station was going to be located just outside of Great Falls in the middle of some really great ag land. Just at the base of the Highwood Mountains, and it was the people in that area who fought back and won and made sure that plant never got built. So that's a good story, right? There was the slaughterhouse that was proposed. It's outside of Great Falls. And that never came about because people organized together and they worked with their local officials and they asked all the right questions and they kept the pressure up. There are some great examples just in Great Falls alone of people power, people gathering together and demanding that their rights be protected. We can do that again. I mean, and the time to do that is before a proposal comes your way, not after a proposal comes your way.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Um, because yes, I there's a lot of really cool stories around Montana about communities coming together. I know um, that I was looking. There was a partnership a few years ago that y'all came together with Citizens for Clean Energy in Great Falls, and you've had many wins with MEIC and also just abroad. I am looking here at these megawatts because I want to. I see like the chart and I'll have a graphic pulled up on the YouTube.
Great.
Um,
I'm
yes,
going there now. Actually, I'm going to go pull up that graphic to make sure I have it in front of me while we're
yeah,
talking. Go ahead.
yeah. So one of the things that when we talk about these rush to build the AI factories or these AI centers, sorry, data centers, um, we have in on MEIC's website, you talk about how you've already seen in China this rush to build these centers and then they just sit empty. And that is the other concern is that because these fly by night, chaotic, yeah, and like you said, wealthy folks just with their own agenda steamrolling ahead, we just don't have a lot of information. Um, and that is scary, is that they want to come in, take up a bunch of water, do all this building, get us all upset, and then who knows? It could just sit empty. Um, talk go sorry, go that
Yeah,
was
no, I'm gonna follow up on that because you're exactly right, and that is the fear, is that I mean, there's been a lot of reporting on this. The head of IBM said the same thing. We don't have the capacity in this country to meet the demand that these tech bros are saying is going to exist in 2030 or 2035. We simply don't have the capacity worldwide to create the chips that you need to create this much demand for AI. It's not viable. There's a lot of hype, and so it is a race right now to the finish line where a lot of people are out there saying, "We're gonna do this. Please lower your tax rates," which Montana already did starting in 2017, and then again did it again this last session in 2025. They lowered the tax rates for data centers, but these guys make promises and, they try to set the stage, and they're doing the same thing in other states. And so first off, not all of the data centers that are proposed could possibly get built because there's simply not enough chips. There's not enough gas turbines. They have permitting restrictions for all sorts of things, whether that's wind or solar or gas plants. They're things processes they have to go through, and so you can't get a new gas turbine. You can't get in the queue for a new gas turbine in this country and expect delivery before 2032. So a lot of these guys are saying, we're going to use gas. No, you're not. Not unless you already have, you're in the queue to get a gas turbine because we can't produce them worldwide fast enough to serve this supposed load. Same with SMRs, small modular reactors. People keep saying, in Butte, they're saying, oh, I think we're going to go with small modular reactors. And it's like, no, they're not. They're not even built yet. There's no such thing. They don't exist. They are a concept on paper in the experimental stage. They haven't been developed yet. Nobody's going to build a small modular reactor in the next decade to serve a data center. So there's a lot of people trying to, it's more marketing. It's kind of a marketing scam. And so China fell into this too. We are likely to fall into this if we're not careful. These guys come in, they flash a lot of money around, they fly people around the country, taking them to their data centers and other places saying, isn't this great? And everybody just bows down and lets them come on in and take the power and take the water. But they also don't always show up because they can get a better deal someplace else. So we need to be really careful because of implications of what happens if, let's say, they convince Northwestern Energy to build a new power plant to serve their needs. And then they decide, like a company did in a big crypto operation at the Hardin Generating Station, that they could get a better deal in Texas. So within a few years, that crypto operation moved from a coal plant, the Hardin Generating Station, down to Texas. And if if in that scenario, if Montanans had paid, existing ratepayers had paid for a new power plant because Northwestern needed it to serve that data center, we would still have to pay for that power plant for the next 30 years. We would still have to pay for the transmission system that would connect the lines to that data center to the rest of Northwestern Energy's transmission and distribution system. Somebody has to pay. Which is why places like Kansas just had they just had a docket on data centers. And there was a big agreement among the parties in that docket in which those data centers, under any circumstance, are going to have to pay the power costs for 12 years. They're going to have to pay all the infrastructure costs. That's what we should be doing in this state. And we can. We have all the tools we need today for Montanans to wrest control of our data center future from the data centers and to put it back in our hands. That's why MEIC and a whole host of other petitioners filed something with the Public Service Commission in November saying we need a data center docket. We need the Public Service Commission to actually regulate these things. We need to make sure that they are paying their fair share and that we, as existing customers, are not subsidizing data centers. And the PSC still hasn't acted on that petition. We're hopeful that it will in the next month or so, but it's time to get busy. We can no longer just sit back and let the world just happen. We have to take
Yeah,
control.
absolutely. And that is a very concerning thing because that was announced in this year by the presidential administration was that states would not be able to create their own AI laws, that was going to be handled at a federal level. Because again, the rich folks that are backing all of these AI
Mhm.
are, they don't want to have different rules in different states for a number of reasons. And, um, that it's a scary it's like it's just too new of a technology, and it I don't want to lose legislative control over that for my people, is what I'm trying to say.
No. And I would say that, we have Republicans and Democrats who in Montana who would like to make sure that AI is, not intruding on our privacy. And so I see legislation in our future that is going to be bipartisan to try to, put some sideboards on the data that AI can use to feed its you know it- feed its machine and create answers to questions that you might have. It it's a privacy issue and we really need to regulate it, and the federal government isn't going to, then States are going to have to. Otherwise, we are going to lose all of our privacy rights. And that's not an environmental issue. So it's not one that we focus on, but it is one that is really concerning.
Right. Yes, and that's one thing Montanans like is their privacy.
Yes.
If
Yes.
there's one thing. Oh, I have I want to go back. We talk about I'm reading here. Some data centers are scoring below market electricity rates with public utilities. Um, they're getting contracts that aren't available, which again, doesn't sound ethical, doesn't sound legal. Um, how are they? Is it just through lobbying and backdoor deals? Is it like walk us through some of these tactics that you may have seen or have heard about um, with contracts and getting their agenda and needs met? How are they doing that?
They're doing it through background group deals with utilities. And oftentimes, it would have to be with the kind of abdication by the Public Utility Commission, in our case, the Public Service Commission, of its responsibilities. In Montana, the law is very clear. The Public Service Commission must approve these contracts. Northwestern has tried every which way to avoid the Public Service Commission having any oversight over its providing power to data centers. Because once it provides power to data centers, then it can increase the amount of power it needs, and it can justify building another $1 billion gas plant. In this case, $2 billion gas plant that's the last gas plant they just built. Northwestern and is like all the utilities. Their purpose is to serve their shareholders, and their shareholders like growth. And utilities see growth in energy demand because of data centers. But they also know that their utility commissions are not going to be so easy at saying you can serve all the data centers you want and have the public subsidize your costs. So what Northwestern tried to do is to avoid the Public Service Commission. So when we brought this up at the legislature, shortly thereafter, the Public Service Commission sent Northwestern Energy a letter and said, hey, wait, the law says you have to come to us to serve these data centers that you are announcing. Northwestern went on a spree last December, January, saying it's going to serve all these new data centers, but it never went to the Utility Commission to ask permission. So in February, the Utility Commission said, Northwestern, you've got to come to us. Northwestern, as Northwestern does, just said, ignore the man behind the curtain. We don't have to go to you. That law, you're reading it all wrong. Um, and it took until August for the Public Service Commission to respond to Northwestern's response and say, no, we disagree. You need to come to us. And then Northwestern again said, there's nothing to see here. And then it quickly acquiesced and said, in November, it said, we will come to the Utility Commission. We will actually ask you for a tariff. Now, a tariff is insufficient as a regulatory tool. Tariffs are good tools for certain things, for limiting data centers, how utilities serve data centers, but they're insufficient. What we need is a customer class, which means data centers are in one class, residential and small commercial are in a different class,
Right,
and
right.
heavy industrials are in a different class for their energy rates. And we allocate the cost of our energy system to each one of those classes based upon their cost to the system. And since data centers are such a unique entity, they need their own rate class to make sure that they really are having the costs allocated to them that they wouldn't otherwise have if they got to get mixed in with, say, heavy industrials. They're unique. And so what we found out, it was litigation back east, where one utility was hiding hundreds of millions of dollars of costs it was going to charge customers, hundreds of millions of dollars of costs in these backroom deals that it had cut with a data center. So to avoid that, we need transparency. We need the Public Service Commission to do its job, to step in and protect existing customers. and to make sure that it's not letting the utility run roughshod over our utility bills. We should not be forced to subsidize these guys, and our utility commission, Public Service Commission, has the authority and the obligation to protect us. And we need them to do that. And we need them to do that immediately.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. In next week, you will be coming to Great Falls to with a couple of different. I think we have the Central Montana Resource Council, Citizens for Clean Energy, and then Upper Missouri Watershed. Have you seen more communities reach out for panels like this as these as the threat of AI continues to loom in Montana?
Yes, absolutely. We did one of these events in Butte back in late October with Butte Watchdogs for Social and Environmental Responsibility, I believe is the name. Great group. And the local called Greeley Neighborhood Association. And then just a woman who was incredibly concerned and had been watching this happen in the community. So we did a presentation similar to this where we lay out the concerns that we have. We are going to be doing this in Great Falls next week at the Haute Hive conference room on the 8th from 5:30 to 7:30. We're going to be doing this in Billings, and we are also going to be doing this in Broadview. There's just a lot of interest, and we just have had no problem at all connecting with communities and putting together these presentations just to start to make people aware of the threats that they pose. There's value. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say there's no value in all of this. There is potential value, but it is only potential value. And that value needs to be realized in a way that is thoughtful and not just lackadaisical, like, sure, come one, come all, which is what our governor's doing. I just want to say, our governor, he created an energy task force, and that energy task force is all about data centers. It is all about data centers. Most of the people on it are data center or data center adjacent companies. There's no clean energy people on that. There's no energy efficiency. There's no consumer advocates. That energy task force by the governor is about growing demand. Why is demand growing? Data centers, period. End of sentence. It's about new generation. Why would we need new generation if there's no growing demand other than data centers? We need it for data centers. And transmission. And transmission is one place where we may agree with him. We do need to get transmission building. We need to upgrade the transmission system. It'll make our lives better and make our electricity system far more reliable. And so, think about an unreliable transmission system now, and then you're adding in thousands of megawatts of energy load. And it's nonsensical. But
Right.
our governor is a data center guy. That's the world he came from. And so we need to be really careful with him because he is going to be an advocate for data centers over the people of the state. And his energy task force is exhibit A.
That's real. Thank you for sharing that with me because those are things that we need to consider is what are our politicians and elected officials, what are their policies? What are their
Mhm.
relationships with these companies? Um, because it, it's, in my opinion, it's fine to have a task force, but we do need those consumer advocates, like we like you mentioned. Having MEIC, having someone on there talking about which public lands, how's that going to impact the rest of us? Fishing, hunting, conservation.
Right.
Um, I don't know of any Montana who would give up their fishing spot for an AI data center.
No. And they would be really bummed if they went there and there were bright lights and loud noise all the time and vibrations. And, we do have to protect what we have. And that doesn't mean we can't move forward in the technology arena, but we've got to do it in a way that protects Montana values. And that is our way of life. That is our public lands and our fishing and our hunting, getting out bird watching. I mean, there's just a million ways we use public lands and public resources, and we need to protect them because these guys from out of state, they don't care.
No. And it's very much yeah, and when you're not from somewhere or when you aren't invested. You see it as something that can be taken, scraped from, and then you move on to the next thing. It's a
That's
very
right.
it, there's no sense of uh, there's no sense of long-term investment in how that will impact folks. So thank you
Right.
for caring about generations. Uh, that's what we want. We want Montana to be the same families that have had families here for years. Keep doing.
Yeah. Uh, on that note, that's happening all over the country too. People care about where they live, and they're fighting back against data centers, and they are winning. Um, this is happening all over the country because people are suddenly becoming aware of the impact these data centers are having, may have, could have on their water resources, their energy, their community, their local values, and they're saying no. I've never seen a campaign quite like this where the public is so universally opposed to data centers doing whatever they want. Um, our politicians don't seem to be syncing up with the public concern, and that's up to all of us to make sure our politicians understand our concerns.
That's a great point is, you know, big tech is not gonna just start choosing the right way of doing things, the ethical way. Big tech is not gonna police itself. It thinks it's its own god. I mean, the god complex of these
Right?
guys is nuts. They're like, "Let's just do whatever we want." You're like, "No." Um,
There should be rules and sideboards. We learn sideboards from the time we're little,
yes.
and we need to keep implementing sideboards as we grow older.
Yes, and yes, it's why we can't just go one way. We can't just have all science and no humanities or ethics. Like we need, okay,
Yeah,
we need everybody talking about this. Because yeah, like you said, AI is amazing. It's so powerful. It has changed lives and profit hospitals, people's
mhm,
healthcare. Like, it's such a complex like, no, I don't want that to stop, but we have to get very, clear about in order to make all of that happen, that progress, that innovation, that convenience, um, what is it going to do to local communities and, particularly in areas where we just do not have the water to fund it, you know?
right,
Um,
and these guys use monstrous amounts of water. I mean, just unbelievable amounts of water. It's kinda mind-numbing.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, I am so grateful for you. Folks, Thursday, January 8th, 5:30 to 7:30 at Haute Hive, that's 721 Central Avenue. MEIC is going to be there with Citizens for Clean Energy, Upper Missouri Watershed, and Central Montana Resource Council. I highly suggest that y'all make it this Thursday. Um, do you know, is it going to be recorded? Does anyone
I
know?
don't know the answer to that, and we did
Okay.
record the one in Butte, but I suspect we will record it. And I just
Okay.
want one correction, it's Upper Missouri Water Keepers Association,
Oh, thank you.
and they are wonderful, and I
Yes.
just wanna make sure that they get the credit they deserve. We
Yes,
love
thank
working with
you.
them, they're super smart.
They are, and I'm excited. I love that y'all are all coming together so we can all ask questions and pick your brain. It's gonna be a powerhouse night. It's gonna be needed. I'm curious if Hot Hive can handle it. Like you said, there's a lot of people publicly unanimously against all this.
We
Uh,
will have overflow seating. We're thinking that that might be necessary. I will be shocked if, in Great Falls, we manage to get 60 to 65 people, which is all the room can handle. So if you are concerned, make sure you show up early. So your overflow seating in another room, you won't be stuck in that situation. But we'd love to see everybody. I think this is they're fun public discussions. They really are.
yes. Yes, and if anything, you just feel a little bit, less crazy. Like, there's other people in the room that aren't reading that like, that are also reading this and being upset and shocked. So, it's nice just to have that solidarity that, "No, you're
Yeah.
not alone. There's other people that care, that are upset." Um,
And there's
so
things we can do. We have
yes.
agency. We have the
Yeah.
ability to make change. And it's working together that makes that happen. So I I don't want anybody walking away saying, "What can we do?" These are wealthiest men in America. And it's like, and we are the people who live here. And we are the ones who elect our politicians. And we are the ones who use the water and need it for agricultural operations. So I would say we have agency and power, and we need to exercise that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just even thinking about how catastrophic it would be to the wheat industry because of how much
Uh-huh.
Montana grows America's wheat. Folks, we have to keep that ground wet.
All right.
We can't lose our wheat. For Americans, that means less beer. Do you hear? Does AI getting in the way of your beer? Listen to me.
That is a great connection.
Protect your beer at all costs. Come to the AI data center panel. Uh, but awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anne. You have been fantastic. I hope that you could come on again and talk about more things that MEIC is working on. You are so critical to the state of Montana. Thank you for all that you do. Folks, if you are interested in learning more about MEIC, Anne, where can they find you?
MEIC.org. It's on our website. You can get an action alert list, which is free. We accept people's donations, absolutely, but you can get on our action alert list and find out what's going on every other week. We send out 3 things you can do this week, a curated list of what we think are the most important things to pay attention to right now in our world. We are very much a pollution related climate, water, air communities. We are focused on those things. So if you care about those things, you should just get on our website at meic.org and sign up for our action alert list.
Absolutely. And folks, if you are curious about reports, data, all of that, they have a tab, MEIC. So if you want to go look at data, get some evidence for something, you can get that. They're in very nicely, presented graphics and charts. We appreciate that. Easy to read. Thank you for doing that. Um, Folks, it has been another great week of Follow the Leader. Thank you, Anne, for being here. And thank you to the listeners and viewers. I'll see you next time on Follow the Leader. See ya.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Bye.